All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition here on the Patterson Report. Happy New Year. I'm Brandon. That's Ryan. And look, yes, this is not Thursday night. Obviously, this is a Friday morning sports podcast. A lot of you are probably at work, but the show must go on. And Notre Dame had the biggest game they've ever played since I've been a fan, at least. Granted, we've made a couple BCS bowls. We've made a 14 playoff, I believe, 3 times, but we never had a shot. It was one of those times where, like, I was a fan, so of course I'm gonna, I'll stump for Notre Dame. I'm like, look, we can beat Georgia, we can beat these teams. Like, you got to put us in. We're 12-0. I knew deep down that we weren't Georgia, we weren't Bama, we weren't Michigan. I knew. Last night, though, going into that Georgia game and watching this team all year, I didn't have that feeling. I was like, this Notre Dame team is one of the best teams in college football, and we are absolutely as good, if not better, than Georgia. So then to get to actually sit down and watch a Notre Dame team on the biggest stage, finally, get the test, go up against Goliath and win. I wasn't missing that. I wasn't missing that for a podcast. It could have been the Joe Rogan experience. I'm still watching that game.
Yeah, I understand it, man. Your team's the big game, and we don't get to see it a lot, the two of us, with me being a Penn State fan, you being a Notre Dame fan. We don't get to see it all that much. It's usually, like you said, the Georgias, the Michigans. Sometimes, it feels like TCU's been in it a little too much recently.
Yeah.
In recent years, it's been deserved, don't get me wrong, but it's one of those things where you see the same teams over and over again. And, we were seconds from getting Arizona State in this thing, too, which would have been crazy.
Which we can get into, because if that's not targeting, nothing is.
I agree.
That was the biggest SEC call of the playoffs so far. And there was a couple on Georgia last night. I don't know if you watched the Notre Dame Georgia game or not. The refs overall, I thought, were okay. Probably like a B- ref grade. But there was one call where Notre Dame converted on 4th down, and we had our slot receiver, Jordan Faison, in motion. But he was in motion in the backfield. He never stepped up to the line of scrimmage. So, when you're in motion in the backfield, you can turn that motion right into your route. You don't have to stop.
No.
And they called illegal formation on that. And Greg McElroy, noted SEC apologist, was on the call. And he was like, well, he didn't come to a complete stop. That's a big mistake by Notre Dame, Ryan Leonard, yada, 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 yada. Then they get the rules expert, Matt Austin, to come on. And they go, Matt, what did we see there? Talk us through it. He goes, they were wrong. That should not have been a flag. The motion was in the backfield. He doesn't need to stop. And Greg McElroy goes live on air. He goes, Matt, I think you're wrong on this one. I think he needs to stop at the line of scrimmage. And Matt goes, well, according to the rules, he does not. So that's just an example, unfortunately, of a ref crew that did an overall decent job being on the biggest stage and not knowing how the rule worked, which isn't great.
Not a great year for refs, man.
It's been a tough year for refs.
Any officials of the game.
The Mahomes thing, you're right, all season the NFL has been bad. The targeting call in Arizona is completely inexplicable. That was left his feet, defensive receiver, and that spear motion they talk about where you launch towards his head. That was all 3 things.
Mm-hmm. Ball didn't lie, though. Ball didn't lie.
Well, yeah, they did.
It did to an extent, but I think they would have got a field goal attempt there late, if I'm being honest. And who knows what would have happened with that field goal attempt. Texas got it. Obviously, they missed, and, we went to overtime. And I don't know why, Arizona State had their opportunity to win that game. That all-out blitz on 4th down was kind of a questionable call.
Yeah.
It was 4th and 15, 12, something like that.
It was 4th and 13, and they completely ignored the wheel route.
Can never ignore the wheel route. It was a great call by Sark. I'll give him that, but man, it's just it's been a year. I'll tell you that much. But have we talked about the Jesus Luzardo trade in detail in here?
No, because he was traded right before Christmas, so we didn't have an episode.
I had my thinking cap on this morning. It's a little early for that, but I have it on.
Yeah, he was right before Christmas. That's, if you're asking me, I think that's pretty clear. That's that's the biggest trade of the offseason for the Phillies, or the biggest acquisition of the offseason for the Phillies. Jordan Romano could turn out to be an absolute stud. You don't know. Jesus Luzardo had a rough end of last year. How healthy he was, you're not really sure. But he's the body of work for him being a stud is there. Like if he is what he looked like, what was it in 23?
23, yes.
He's probably your number 2. As much as I love Aaron Nola and I love the length and the work, all that stuff, pure dominance and stuff, Luzardo might be your number 2 if he's completely right.
Yeah, I think we did talk about this because I remember you telling me that he was the number 2.
If he's healthy.
If he's healthy, yeah. I mean, in terms of prospects, I'm okay with what we gave up.
Yeah.
Was it Kaba again?
I don't remember. It's been days.
It's been weeks at this point,
Yeah.
and I feel bad that I don't remember the trade that acquires the stud starting pitcher. But I know he was playing shortstop, and he was blocked by Aiden Miller, Trey Turner.
That's what it was.
Bryson Stott.
Whoever it was a shortstop because he had no path to the pros.
Yeah.
He couldn't go second because of Stott.
Mm-hmm. I think it was Starlin Kaba.
Yeah.
I'm making sure I'm correct because it's early. It's early enough in the morning. It's not early in the morning, but it's early for a podcast.
It is. Not too many 10 a.m. pods coming out.
No, not too many coming at you, but
I think you are right though. I remember the conversation about there not being a path to him making the big league.
There was no path, and could he be good in 4 or 5 years? Sure, but this window is going to be way over in 4 or 5 years. So now he could bring Painter up slow because Luzardo's there. So and
Taiwan Walker shouldn't sniff the rotation at this
he's not
point.
gonna. We could talk about that though. We could talk about how Painter's innings are getting limited. I don't know if I agree with that. They're limiting him up to what, like mid-season or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Me either, because I think you can do it now because you shored up the starting rotation that was already one of the best in baseball. So you do have an embarrassment of riches at the top. There's no reason to push him. I do kind of agree with you though that if you ever think he's going to turn out to be a starter in 2025, you can't start that ramp up at midseason. Like the games from July on, the games are only going to matter more and more with each week. So if you want to bring him along slowly, that's the opposite of when you do that.
I think this means Ranger is getting moved, even though there's been a lot of talk about that.
Oh, Denver. See, I was just thinking the opposite because you've heard far less recently. It felt like there was a couple of weeks there where almost every deal included some combination of Ranger and Bone, or Bone and prospects, Ranger and probably. There was a lot of cobbling of those two together. The last 2 weeks or so, I have hardly heard Ranger's name at all.
I mean, you haven't heard much of the Phillies. Everyone's talking about Saquon's record. We can talk about that too in a couple of minutes. But I think it's the way we were heading that we were gonna shake this roster up just a little bit and then run it back. I don't think, myself included, was ready for that, but it was always the destined outcome. I just think
I just don't think Rangers to change.
No, it's just I don't know what they could do at this point. I mean, Luis Robert's still out there, but I don't know. I think they're going to run it back. I think.
I mean, I would have liked to have seen more improvement. I'm with you. I think we've marginally improved. If Luzardo is who we think he is, we now have the best starting rotation in baseball, I think, assuming Rangers back. So it could be a bit more of a philosophy shift, maybe, if you're the Phillies, to where, I mean, we had great pitching last year, but this team was built around slugging. Still is. But the only thing I can think of where I can put myself wherever Dave Dombrowski's head was this offseason is that if you're not going to be able to get a bat, which I still think we would have been able to, that's neither here nor there. You build up the pitching as kind of a hedge for when the bats inevitably go cold. I would have rather him fix that issue and have the entire lineup not go cold simultaneously. But if you're gonna ignore that, at least shore up the pitching.
Yeah, and he did, and you got to give him credit for that. I mean, Hoffman and Estevez are still out there. I don't think we're going to go over. I believe it's the fourth apron that we're at now. There's so many aprons in MLB. It's kind of crazy, but
The
I
third
don't
apron,
think.
everybody costs double.
Yep, and you
You
know you
got to
can't.
pay their salary too in fees.
And I don't think we're going to do that. I think Hoffman's going to go somewhere else. And I think Estevez is going to go somewhere else as well. And I think what we have is what we have. And then, maybe Ranger or slide in the bullpen or something like that when we need them. Or I think that's about it.
I wonder if Hoffman somehow survived the winter meetings and he just misjudged his market, or the way he ended the season tanked his market, whatever might have happened. I think it opens the door to, as stupid as it sounds, I think he's a great pitcher. It opens the door to almost another kind of prove it deal. Come back to the Phils for a year, maybe 1 year at 12, and then go try it again next year if he survives the winter meetings.
I think he could very well come to that. I mean, he's looking for a deal like Clay Holmes is. I don't know if the rumors were he wanted to try his hand at being a starting pitcher.
Well, Clay Holmes is starting.
Yeah, Clay Holmes is starting. I'm talking about Trevor Hoffman. Or not Trevor Hoffman.
If he wants that deal, maybe he wants the whole thing.
Yeah.
That deal with the starting spot.
I think he does, and I'm calling him one of the greatest closers of all time by accident because it's early for a podcast. But
you call him Trevor Hoffman?
I just did, yeah. I just did. A little early for this, but yeah, I mean, if he survives winter meetings, I could see 1 year, $8-9 million. It's a lot for the Phillies to pay, but it's worth it in the end. He was good all season, and it's just a shameful end to what was a fantastic season. So the bullpen was so solid all the way up until the end. It just irks me because they were not great at the end there.
No, but I think Romano is going to be all right. Strom is probably going to be asked to do even more than he was, because last year he was sometimes your high leverage, he was sometimes your middle reliever, sometimes your closer. I think this year every spot he comes into is going to be a sticky situation for the most part. He'll probably be the one to take over, not the closer role, because I think they're going to hope Romano can do that. But I think he'll consistently every night be your seventh man. So that you're going to ask more out of guys. You're going to ask more out of Strom. Kerkering in his third year, I think he was good last year, but I think he can't be the young guy with the fiery stuff who is brilliant every once in a while. Like, I think he's going to have to be good every night now is kind of the expectation. Which I think he can be, but it is odd, to your point, that the bullpen fell apart at the end, and I now feel less good about the 2025 bullpen than I did about the one that collapsed.
Yeah, that's never a good feeling, and I hope Romano could get it back, but you never know with these low risk, high reward deals how they could pan out. I mean, maybe Dombrowski could trade for more bullpen help with the deadline again, but it's going to be pricey. So I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, looking back on it, Estevez was an overpay.
It was a very hefty haul that the Angels got in return for him, and he's still out there, which is kind of crazy. But
yeah, he was. I'll give him. He was fine. I mean,
he was good until the Lindor homer, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he blew a couple. I would say he was a league average closer, which is more than what we had. We didn't have a closer, but
yeah,
I mean, he was underwhelming for what was given up. I found him to be underwhelming.
That's fair. He was two very high level prospects. So.
Yeah, for a half season rental of a closer who shit the bed in the big moments. It's kind of all we needed you. We didn't need you for August. I mean, he was brought here to slam the door in October.
Yeah, it's just it's rough, but I respect the move. He was
you make it.
You make the move 20 times out of 20 if you're hoping for a World Series. It just didn't pan out, which like I thought he was above average for most of the season. Like at least that's what I saw, but maybe I missed some of the games here and there because 162 is a lot of games.
Yeah, he wasn't bad. I think he was average. His stuff wasn't all that electric, I mean, in the half season he was here with us, he blew at least 4 saves, which, across 4 months, not bad, not great. It's good. But again, when you make that kind of a haul, Dave wasn't worried about winning games in July, August, September. This team was always going to do that. You go out and shore up your bullpen because in November or because in October, when you need to get a big out against Lindor, Alonso, whoever that dude was in left field that kept crushing us, that's why you go and get him.
Nimmo?
Yeah, no. I'm blanking on his name.
Was it Vientos? He's playing third.
Yeah,
he's playing third.
Yeah. I mean, you bring him in to get those guys out. And to a T, nobody in the bullpen got those guys out.
It was rough, but I guess we can move on real quick here because we're not going to be on too long. It is
we got St. Quads not getting the record.
How do you feel about that? I'm okay with it. It's I want him to get the record, and it'd be extra sweet against his old team. But man, you are playing for a trophy, and I think the first round matchup against the Packers could be very brutal. So like. They're a good team, not a great team. I don't think they've beaten a really good team all year. They lost to the Vikings twice. They lost to the Lions. They lost to the Eagles, and I think those are like the only like top tier teams that they played.
The only thing I would rather play the Commanders personally. I would rather see Washington.
Here's why I wouldn't. Here's why I wouldn't. I'm gonna. So. With everything shaking out the way like that it's shaking out, it looks like the 4-5 might be Tampa and I don't know, it might be the Rams. I forget who it's going to be. I don't want to play Minnesota or Detroit in the second round. I want to save them for the NFC title game. And if the Packers play the Rams, or I'm trying to maneuver around here. They play the Rams and the Packers win, we're gonna be playing, probably the Vikings if the 5 seed advances, because I think the 5 seed's gonna win. I don't know who it's gonna be, but I think it's gonna be tough to. Whoever the 4 seed is gonna lose. Is what I'm trying to say. The Buccaneers, I think they're gonna lose, or it's the Rams. But I want to play the higher seed.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to play the division winner at the link. So that's what I'm trying to articulate. Like I said, it's early and I can't articulate my thoughts properly right now on a Friday. But that's what I'm trying to get at, that I don't want to play Minnesota or Detroit in the second round, even though it would be at the link and I think we'd have an advantage. But I don't want to play 2 brutal games in a row.
Wait, no, neither. Only one of those games would be at the link if it was Minnesota or Detroit.
Well, Minnesota or Detroit second, that's what I'm talking about. We're gonna have to play the other one third, but
yeah, because whoever wins the NFC North will have the 1 seed.
That's gonna be cinema Sunday night, by the way. That's gonna be must-watch TV.
It's gonna be a great game. So yeah, I mean, that's the only situation that we wouldn't get at home. Everybody else, we're the 2. So as long as we don't have to play Minnesota or Detroit in the next round, that game's at home.
I'm forgetting how the seating's going, and I know a couple of guys are getting sat for the Rams, so they're okay with falling to the 4. So if we'll see what happens this weekend. We'll have a better picture coming up, but I think it's going to be the Packers, and I think whoever we play next, it's probably going to be. I don't think the Commanders are going to beat the Rams. I think it's going to be close if that's how it plays out. So I think it'd be the Rams, the Eagles, and then a rematch of whoever wins Sunday night versus whoever loses on their home turf. So that's where my mind's heading right now. I don't know about you.
I'm just thinking. I mean, I wasn't even thinking road. I'm just of those 2 teams. I trust Matt LaFleur far more in the playoffs than I do a Washington team that, by and large, has never been there before. Pretty much coaching on down. I mean, when you're coaching your quarterback, don't have playoff experience at their current position, that's where I'd like to be. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think O'Brien's won a playoff game, right?
Dan Quinn, I don't think. I think he has as a coordinator for sure, because he went on that run with Atlanta. But I don't think as a head coach. I don't think he did.
No.
He might have. in Atlanta. He went back to Atlanta, right? I'm trying to remember. As a head coach, I think he was the defensive coordinator when Shanahan was the offensive coordinator. Or no, he was Shanahan's offensive coordinator. He was Shanahan's offensive coordinator. He won a game.
He was the guy that blew the lead to New England.
Yeah, he won a playoff game.
Yeah, he was the one that blew the Super Bowl.
Yeah, he won as a head coach. So
yeah.
So they both have Atlanta 2015 and 2020. I thought he was the defensive coordinator of that team for some reason, but he does have playoff experience. I just don't want the road to go NFC North exclusively. I don't want it to go Packers, Vikings, Lions, then the other one of those two teams. I feel like it's a really, really tough road.
I just want as much of it to come through the link as possible. I think that makes a big difference.
I think it honestly could because, like I said, if we get the road that I'm talking about, Minnesota or Detroit, they're very evenly matched. One of those teams could go into the other team's home stadium and win a game. Like it's pretty obvious. I'm rooting for Minnesota this Sunday night. I think Detroit could go in there and beat them in the playoffs. It's a lot harder the other way around because Detroit's home field is going to be crazy. But
I would also love to find a way somehow. I don't know how the path works, but to have Minnesota have to come back here again for the NFC Championship game.
Well, all they have to do is lose this Sunday night, and then the lower seed, the Commanders, would have to beat whoever they play, and we get Minnesota.
Minnesota at home would be Vietnam flashbacks for that team.
We're 4-0 in the playoffs, aren't we?
What do you mean?
Against Minnesota.
Yeah.
But
I mean, this is as good of a Minnesota team as I can remember. I mean, as much as I hold on to 2017 memory and love the ass whooping that we put down on Minnesota, this team's way better than that team was.
Yeah, it's funny because they were supposed to be rebuilding this year.
Yeah, well,
Sam Darnold, he wasn't supposed to be that good. JJ McCarthy was probably going to come in and replace him at some point. He got hurt.
Yeah.
And now we're here. They have a decision to make this offseason, which we'll probably talk about at some point because it's going to impact the landscape of the NFC and, whatever may happen there. But
quickly, I think, before we wrap it up, I think you tag him.
Yeah.
You don't give him a 3-year because he might be Sam Darnold again, but you got to give him a 1-year tag.
I think Kevin O'Connell's that good. I think he could elevate just about anyone in that scheme. I mean, sure, it didn't end well for them last year, but they were really, really thin at quarterback. Everyone got hurt, and everyone's backup got hurt at that point too. So I think you tag him, let him. If he plays out the year, you could trade him. You got options after you tag him, and I'm pretty sure it's $40 million, so it's probably gonna be cheaper than the $50 million he'd get elsewhere. So.
And it probably makes JJ McCarthy better. I mean, you look at what the Packers do. The Eagles did it a little bit. I mean, I'm a big believer in letting these guys. If you have a quarterback in place, I'm a huge believer in letting these guys sit for a couple of years and get adjusted before you throw them.
Dude, we could sit here till 12 and I could talk about that, if I'm being honest. we could sit here till 12 and talk about why patience is a virtue, but with, how fast the NFL moves, patience can't be allowed at this point. I mean, you see it with these guys. They said Drake May was going to sit a season. He came in 4 or 5 games.
Yeah.
Penix got the luxury of sitting. I think he sat a little too long to cost him the division, but that's neither here nor there when you're talking about the future. I mean, Jaden Daniels came in right away. He turned around the whole franchise. Caleb Williams struggled a little bit, but these quarterbacks. See what it
looks like next year. I mean, CJ Stroud did the same thing. The sophomore slump is a real thing.
I think that's coaching. And Bobby Slowick, as the Texas offensive coordinator, took a huge step back if you watch everything. And the offensive line did too. Like, you need the infrastructure there, which is why part of why Hurts is so good, because the offensive line is so good. The weapons are so good. It's just that, these guys need to learn. It's not, oh, wow, you're an NFL quarterback now. And we could talk about this at a later date too, because we're running up on time here. I think Jaden Daniels, for as good as he did irreparable damage to rookie quarterbacks. I think CJ Stroud shortened the clock. Jaden Daniels shortened it even more. Like, If you can't come in and turn around a franchise right away, you're done. And sure, there's been examples of why that's not a good thing, and you see some rookie quarterbacks struggle, but you saw Bryce Young. He got some time to develop. He looks really good now. Like, of
Yeah,
course, the team's not winning because there's not a whole lot around him, and the defense is depleted. But when you turn on the tape, he looked good against the Eagles too. If Leggett didn't drop that ball, they beat us.
yeah.
So
So it's they said patience is a virtue. We have plenty of time to be patient this week. I'm debating on honestly even watching. I might watch to see how Tanner McKee looks, but that's about it. But I figure we'll do another one on Thursday. I'm okay with kind of glossing over the Giants game and then using Thursday as like a playoff preview kind of week.
Yeah,
because I don't think we're going to learn too much about this team this weekend.
No, we're not. I mean, I'm excited to see. Is Kenny Pickett playing?
No, it's Tanner McKee, I believe.
I thought it was going to be Tanner McKee. I'm excited to see Tanner McKee play. I'm honestly really excited. So I'm probably going to watch. But
all right, well, Ryan,
I'm a sucker for. We'll recap that if he does really good or really poorly. We'll gloss over because he's in this rookie class, or was he last? He was last year. My bad. He looks
if you
really.
see tweets coming out during the game on Sunday, I will tell you right now they are not mine. I will certainly not.
I'm going to be hyping up Tanner McKee. It's going to be I just like watching football. It is what it is. But I want to see if he's something as legit backup in the years to come. I know we made the Kenny Pickett trade, but Tanner McKee looked pretty good in relief on Sunday. So we'll see if there's any substance to that. He's going to be playing with the backup, so not AJ Brown, Devonta Smith. So. Maybe we'll take it with a grain of salt, but yeah.
We'll see what he's got with the full workload ahead of him. But with it being 10:30, I got some stuff I got to take care of during the day, so I got to pop off here.
Me too.
At night it's a little bit easier to go overtime, but during the day it's
trust me, I understand.
But until Thursday, I'm Brandon. He's Ryan. This is the Passing Report. Go Birds and go Irish.